And why the girl? Don't you pity her? And we saw bluntly, well, this is, darn, a huge convoy. Dunno, we don't even know how many units there were. They were so confident like that there were many of them and they'd capture the village. There, a group came out of an IFV with a flag. And then they tell me that. Actually, my husband, who's also fighting in my company, in our company, that he died, that he's the 200th, and that he has a bullet in his head. Many times you have to stand up. Be ready to use the weapon. My daughter primarily motivates me to survive. A small Soviet army will never defeat a large Soviet army, but a small network-centric modern army can defeat a large army full of all that scrap metal. My name is
Yaryna Chornohuz.
Call sign Yara. I am a platoon combat medic in the Marines. Now we are on the front in Donetsk Oblast.
Yaryna, how did the full-scale Russian invasion begin for you?
On February 24th, I was with my platoon. We had already been on deployment for 8 months. In fact, a few weeks before we already knew that something would be going on. We were preparing. We had a preliminary task to take up the lines, then the position, in the positions specified in advance. So we were simply woken up at night by grads. We got up and started to act according to the plan, that's all.
The full-scale invasion was a surprise for many. So, to what degree was it for you? Had you been preparing or was it a surprise for you too?
As early as 2020, when I was still in the Hospitallers and didn't yet sign a contract with the Marines, I understood that the second hot stage was waiting for us. I mean, I had such a day, by the way, at the Mariupol front line, I clearly felt, while being on patrol there in the trenches in a position, that Putin would try to occupy Ukraine at least to the Dnipro River. So I acquired awareness and understanding of this. The only question was when. And this is one of the reasons why I actually signed the contract in May 2020. Because I wanted to be ready. To be ready. Although many people told me that, why do you need it? The war isn't the same anymore. It has already ended. It was in 2014 to 2015 and that's it. Nothing will happen. So, many veterans from 2014 and 2015 were very skeptical about my choice. But so, I had a feeling that there'd be something, and I'd have to be ready and come to replace those who'd need to be.
Where did you have to meet the Russian occupiers during the full-scale invasion? Do you remember these first fights?
Yes. It's impossible to forget. It happened on the first days of March in the villages north of Mariupol. I mean, we initially had the task of entering Mariupol to reinforce the Marines who were there, but by the moment we arrived, we were trying to find a loophole to enter the city and couldn't find it. It was completely besieged, and the huge convoys were traveling around it. The first such battle was in
Зачатівка.
It's already in the Volnovaga Rayon, so, I remember the day, we were standing in a group of 5 with a BRDM on an agricultural road, so. Our task was to watch the road and warn the forces in the village in case we saw the enemy. And so, after a day and a half, while we were being on our patrol there, on this road, we saw an armored convoy of about 30 units of vehicles, which was moving directly to our observation post and was 500 to 300 meters from us or less, so. I launched a drone, so, and it was the first time I actually saw Russian tanks a few hundred meters away from us, so. We reported about it, prepared to fight. Then we lost our BRDM, because a tank also noticed us, which was in the convoy. It aimed at us first, and then it saw that the BRDM standing next to us, and hit the BRDM. And we withdrew as a group to join our forces in the village.
Did you want to stop the Russian tanks with a BRDM and N5s?
We were going to at least fire the first shots at them, which demoralized them a little bit, because when a convoy moves, the first shots are very demoralizing. Our gunner, Star Yi, was about to fire. He aimed at it. When we were withdrawing, he was shouting all the way, "Damn, I aimed at it! I aimed at it!" But the tank hit first, and he was lucky that it wasn't a high-explosive incendiary, not a high-explosive shell, but this first armor-piercing one, which just pierced and ignited it. And Star Yi, the comrade, said that, "I flew out of the BRDM like a champagne cork." Well, we withdrew to the village. Unfortunately, in that battle with that convoy, my platoon commander, the commander of the 1st Platoon, Senior Lieutenant Anton Havak, who was a very important person for our platoon, died. He taught us the basics of reconnaissance. We were patrolling the gray area a lot, and it was such a heavy loss. The second heaviest fight of this kind in the entire time of the all-out invasion was in the same village, when we with a smaller force held it for a week, with much smaller forces with us, and the 503rd Naval Infantry Battalion was also with us next to our company. We had much fewer forces at that time than, the orcs. Every day we were hit by grads, artillery, tanks, and everything. The village, over these 5 days, was bluntly leveled almost to the ground by this armored convoy. And that day I remember how it all started. We only drew a bucket of water, 3 wounded people were just taken from us, 1 with an amputated leg and 2 more also with severe wounds from a tank shell. We just drew water to wash Bogdanchik after them, our evacuation car, when we heard the voice of Hector, our commander of the 2nd Platoon, on a radio, "Battle starts." We left the water, everything, and ran to the position. Here one. At that moment, the video showed us sitting in straw shooting at orcs.
Я думаю, може Може сухпаяно вернути?
Давай.
Сухпая?
Ну, поки що видно, давай.
Ну там, ззаду.
By that moment, that stack of straw had already burned. We made a fortified area in the yard. We ran to the positions. The wall of any type of fire hit us. Our Kanzler launched a drone, and we saw, bluntly, this is a huge convoy. Dunno. We don't even know how many units there were. It was much bigger than the first one, later on in the video we saw that they were so sure like that there were many of them and they'd capture the village. That a group there came out of an IFV with a flag. It was visible all over the field. And so this convoy also began to fire bluntly everything at us relentlessly and also level the village. And next to this, the infantry, which was in front, opened fire on us being in 5s. I heard bullets and shells whistled overhead. Well, we very quickly used up the magazines that we had on the armor and knives, used up grenade launchers, the NLAWs that we had, and within a couple of minutes of fighting, we had 3 wounded. I mean, I was the only combat medic in that position. This was my most difficult experience in first aid as a combat medic. I mean, I'm running to one guy, and he shouts, "Yara! 300! Help!" And I'm tamponating his cheek. In a couple of minutes, shrapnel cut the legs of the other guy, so I'm applying a tourniquet. And then they tell me that actually my husband, who's also fighting in my company, in our company, that he's dead, that he's the 200th, and that he has a bullet in his head. And I. At this moment, while I'm bandaging one, well, I've bandaged him and say, well, we've been prepared for this to happen, and I started to pull free allegedly him. Threw aside the debris, pulled him free and saw that it was Hector, that it was the commander of the 2nd platoon, so. And my husband there ran out, he was shooting a grenade launcher, well, he was lucky in this battle. So. We pulled him away. So. Well, there was a wound. In his head, a large one. We continued. Continued to fight. So. In the following months. We visited many locations there in Donetsk Oblast, so like
Золота Нива, Новоукраїнка, Вугледар,
front,
Бахмут, Попасна, Миколаївка, Комишуваха,
also
Слов'янськ, район
so, then the liberated territories of Donetsk Oblast, which were liberated in September to October. And over this time, we've established such a very productive, reconnaissance work. We started working with drones, learned to drop 40mm grenades, learned to adjust artillery, so, it feels incredibly nice when here your group spots perched there in a thicket. Who are these mobilized people walking around, not digging, doing nothing? To aim a 777 right there. And we have a video from a drone of them all running after the first hit, and the next missile hit right into the center where they are running, and they are there. Just such an explosion, the grass, and that's it. And then an IFV comes to pick up their remains. So, the first few weeks, when we were very much outnumbered in everything, they were hard. But in just a couple of months, we recovered and wanted to have a similar fight again, to take some revenge.
How often do you have to, use your knowledge directly as a combat medic? How's different the war now? Yes, almost a year after the start of the all-out invasion, from the February to March Russian offensive, from your point of view, yes, as a medic, as a fighter now?
Much better. The logistics, the interaction between units have changed for the better. If in the first weeks, there was such chaos, well, now there's interaction, communication. Everyone communicates, everyone's informed. There's control and understanding of the situation. Even with many different units, this is maintained. This is the main thing. In terms of providing first aid. Dunno, I'm so used to this that I don't feel any emotions when I help anyone with any kind of injury. Later, this catches up with me a little bit, after a week or two, especially if it's a person you were fighting together with for a long time or have known for many years, then it affects you a little bit. But at first, you just work and do everything you've learned. People ask me, what gives you strength itself here? Two things give me strength. The first one is those who I knew and who we lost. I mean, they went through this most terrible experience of death, because I treat death as an experience too, so. And if they went through it, then I can go through it. And I shouldn't be afraid of it, because it already happened to them, and they continue to live in our memory. I mean, that's how I try to treat it. And the second things, of course, when you see that the people you helped survived. So, and.
Do you have any special wounded people you remember? Or maybe they call you, right, thank you for saving their lives?
The last evacuation was of a fellow soldier, Group Commander Bye-Bye, who I actually had known for 3 years. So, he made more than, probably 100 combat missions, most of which as a group commander. And just when he was getting in positions, he stepped on a mine, so. And he got an amputation. And then, when he was being dragged away, they came under indirect fire on a flank from the orcs. So, we were taking him for quite a long time because it was far from the hospital, yes. But he did well, he bore everything. And I really like how he's holding up. A couple of days passed, and he wasn't depressed or anything like that. He calls me. I reposted, well, about him, about what happened, so. He wrote me about many things on rehabilitation programs. He says, they offered so many things. Journalists, diplomats write. He says, I'm the center of attention, so. I mean, the man's holding up very, very well. It's very difficult to remember other cases like those when you carried a seriously wounded man for a long time. He was conscious, we managed, well, to keep him alive, and then you find out that he died in the hospital in a couple of hours. This is also very difficult when, well, you did everything you could to keep him alive, but the injury didn't allow it.
To what extent, like now, tactical medicine, to what extent yes, your experience has grown? I mean, do you accept that you and your comrades have enough knowledge, well, to provide any first aid there? Or are you still learning something more for this?
Well, there are no limits to perfection, of course. And I don't have a higher medical education. I'm not like a professional intensivist. So, of course, there's what to improve. And in first medicine, in first aid, there's such a thing that you need to refresh your knowledge from time to time. I mean, you need, for example, to take additional courses, so. You don't always have time for this, but it's necessary. I mean, you always need to improve yourself in this sphere to provide good first aid regardless of a wound.
I often see in interviews different medics from different units who don't exactly brag, but simply say some numbers like I saved 10 wounded, someone says 100. Do you keep some similar kind of record or is it inappropriate?
Well, I treat such counts skeptically because they aren't points, likes, or scores. Well, to count them, the wounded. I deliberately don't count either the wounded or the killed who I needed to evacuate because often it's the killed that I have the most difficult memories of, that's why. I don't do this. Also, I'm very skeptical when they say all the wounded who I helped survived. This simply means that, well, they either were given only the lightly wounded somewhere that they didn't take them from the battlefield, because when you take someone from the battlefield, very often someone dies on the way. Well, that's about all.
How do you manage to combine? I mean, you can simultaneously. I mean, you see the enemy, you can shoot, if necessary. You provide aid. Is this experience already or how do you manage it?
Well, This is such my combat medic philosophy. There are different philosophies of a combat medic, and one of them is, like American journalists often ask, why do you carry a rifle, an assault rifle if you are a medic? So, but I prefer, like, the closer version, which, if I'm not mistaken, is also practiced in the Israeli army. I mean, a combat medic is considered as one and the same soldier of a unit or group who fights in the same way, participates in missions, in operations, and only if someone suffered a wound, they are the first to provide aid and manage the evacuation. This approach is closer to me, and that's why actually I chose this position, because it definitely allows you to be at the very front.
Since the beginning of the all-out invasion, you've been using your experience as a medic, and you had to use weapons. Do you have such moments when you have to combine both?
Yes, when we take the wounded, the killed from the very front line. We have such a section now where, well, in short, you can meet the occupiers at any time, even in a couple of 100 meters, tens of meters behind the enemy's lines, this kind of section. And yes, many times we have to get up, to be ready to use weapons, and especially it has to be used against drones that fly constantly, the CatSap ones. There've been a few more of them recently.
In your work, what do you lack to completely fulfill your combat duties as a doctor and fighter?
First of all, armored vehicles. This isn't only about me as a combat medic or person who works on a Kazhevak vehicle, but also about other, like platoons, because you need to go to the front line in armored vehicles. We have pickups, so I'll give you a couple of examples. Here, one of our company officers Rex, during such a mission, together with his deputy Achilles, they were blown up by a mine, so, if they were traveling in a capsule armored car, both of them would be alive, but as it was, only one person from the crew was lucky to survive. So, another story, when we were near Popasna, it was May, early May. We were doing reconnaissance there, crawling in groups, and we found a car shot by the sabotage and reconnaissance group. It was driven by a woman, junior sergeant, border guard, who, well, was killed. And we managed to get two guys out who, survived, through whom bullets and shrapnel passed as well. They were moderately wounded, even one was seriously wounded, but we managed to pick them up and get them out, and they survived. Again, if they had been riding in an armored car, these bullets and even 40mm grenades that the group fired at them wouldn't have prevented them from breaking out of the envelopment.
Look, you are talking about the clashes, direct engagements, artillery engagements. We know that the Russians still outnumber and outgun us, but the Ukrainian army continues not only to hold back the offensive but also to counterattack at times and kill hundreds, thousands of occupiers. Thanks to what? Can you already analyze this for yourself? You are in positions with the command, with company commanders, so there are some. How's this possible?
Of course. This succeeds because we are actively moving to network-centric warfare. Here I'll repeat this rather hackneyed phrase that a small Soviet army will never defeat a large Soviet army, but a small network-centric modern army can defeat a large army full of all that scrap metal they accumulated over the Soviet era. So, what are the key factors? First of all, drones that provide constant surveillance of the line. We are constantly aware of what the enemy's doing, so this is the most important thing. And a sufficient number of modern, high-precision artillery that very accurately strike the targets detected by the drone, so This is the basis of why we manage to actively stop them. Of course, the resilience of the infantry who hold the positions, this is heroic. Just staying there every day, especially in this weather, is heroic. This is also the reason why we are winning. Another important reason is that we have good communication. I mean, we have Starlinks, repeaters, and all the units are in full cooperation and understand the situation.
What's the attitude you of the mobilized guys, the guys who just, well, and the girls who quite recently started fighting, and you have many years of experience? Perhaps, skeptically, or perhaps on the contrary, with respect?
With respect. I didn't see any skepticism there, or any distrust. No, everyone tends to trust. Especially here, we have a very healthy atmosphere in the company. Everyone's, well, trying to improve to do the tasks. Everyone listens to each other there, so. They've been with us now, many of them, for 8 months. I mean, they've already been for 8 to 10. They are already such fighters themselves that they can say a lot. There's no such thing like what can this girl tell me? I'm a warrior, anyway. No, it has never happened in this company. No, no. And when I meet guys from other units, sometimes, well, someone acts in front of it's like, can say some stupid things. For example, it just happened when we were taking out a killed soldier right from the front line for a long time, so, and it took us a long time to drag it out. We left, let's say the body, there near a landmark, and then, well, we ran faster to drive there, quickly throw the body in and leave, because the road's very dangerous there, the very scary one. I jumped in, and the driver says, and why the girl? Don't you pity her? I just said that this was non-negotiable. I was writing, well, the guys jumped in. We got there okay. We put the guy in the car and drove him, everything was fine. Well, but such moments happen with the adjacent units.
So a girl at the front isn't a strangeness now, it's a regularity?
It depends on where. The soldiers in my unit probably won't be surprised because, well, they know me, for example. And many people are still surprised by this because, well, most of the people at the front are men. And, well, this is a fact. Some people are surprised, depending on experience, and some aren't. There are those who aren't lucky enough to see a woman at all, and it's very strange for them when someone tells them something about me being at the front. Well, like the same way. And some people, on the contrary, know many such women and they only take our side.
Yaryna, what does inspire you personally? Maybe someone, maybe some acts or someone's actions, or someone, certain people? Still, it's a difficult war, morally and physically, and it's impossible to be fulfilled every day. Yes, and work, shoot, fight, think, save.
I'm, like most of the people here, trying to find this balance in order to complete the task and survive at the same time. Of course, the task's in the foreground and will continue to be risked for, but in war, it's also important to survive, and to survive I'm motivated primarily by my daughter, so. She's now in another country, far away from me, so. The last time I saw her in person was almost half a year ago. So for her sake. Thoughts about her, I want to do everything well, to stay.
Do you often keep in touch with her?
Yes, almost every day. I often ask her what's new at school, how are the studies, everything, but she's like bored to talk about it. So whenever we have a chance, we play an online game together. There's a virtual world where I run around her, and she introduces me, well, to this virtual game when I have free time. She likes this very much.
Does she know what mom does?
Yes, she does. And she supports me in this. I record a lot of videos for her in which I'm in a helmet telling her something from the front and she writes like, oh, cool, great.
Сократ, Яринский, прием. Яринский, я Сократ на прием. Вы готовы работать? Повтори, не прошло. Плюс-плюс.
For some time, she asked me a lot about weapons, about automatic firearms. She got interested in it. I mean, I got lucky with my daughter in the sense that she's already smart at the age of 8 and understands very well why we need to defend ourselves against Russia. Back in 2019, when I first, went to the front, the thought that someone had been sweating their blood for me in the trenches for 5 years was unbearable. To think that I live here and someone's paying such a price for this state. I mean, well, that's about me, so. And I'd like to. If we all had, well, this level of solidarity, well, we'd have won this war before it even started. I mean, by the time Putin would have tried to send in the troops, we'd have been ready, we'd not have let them get these hundreds of kilometers, and now here we go again. So, after a year of the full-scale war, it's very sad to see someone being brought to the military commissariat with a writ. Well, sorry, in a trunk. Really shameful. Ridiculous, shameful. Well, this war, if we want to win it, we all need to pull ourselves together, and what's important, as I also said this a couple of years ago, it's for a long time. Even if it comes down, after some time. If Putin remains in power, it'll happen again. So we all have to be ready now in military terms. All of us. Even those who've never faced it before. I mean, now you need to, well, you have time, you need to learn, you need to find out what specialty you'd like to have in the war. I mean, it's absolutely wrong to live now with the understanding that that's it. I believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. I put on a sweatshirt with the armed forces of Ukraine all over it, and that's it. I'm going to live as if there's no war. No, then we'll definitely lose.
Now you have an opportunity to thank those who help you, to thank our readers and viewers, and to ask for something. What would you ask for your unit, besides armored vehicles, which volunteers aren't always able to get?
Well, yes. First of all, I want to thank literally 2 volunteers, I'll even name them.
Олексію Цедику і Кирилу Українцю. Олексій
He himself is in Germany. He provided us with a Kazhevak vehicle that's still in use, ours, since April. It has already withstood 3 times, in short, well, of total. This from shrapnel, but it continues to drive, so. I want to thank him for all his help, for the lightweight plates, for the helmets, for everything. I want to thank Kurlo, who repairs our vehicles, he constantly and tirelessly performs miracles, gets something back on its wheels even that should have been out of commission for a long time, so. And ask for drones, Mavics, matrices, kamikaze drones. This is what we really need to effectively destroy the enemy. This is the main thing. Everything else we have.
Yaryna, thank you for the conversation. I wish you strength, patience, yes, and the victory for which you've been fighting for many years.
Thank you.